Before we start this video, a large thank you to Tim, Malik, Yasin, Draken, Van, East Artist, Ryu Gashik, Matthew, Camilla, Bastien, Ryan, Oraset, Agizrael, Bandar, Zisco, Tom, Matthew, and Abisips for their support on Patreon. I hope you guys enjoy the video. Hello guys, and today we're going to add the charging attack to our character. This will be an item action. So right now we have the one-handed and two-handed variants of it. You can see here we have the charge and then the release animation. If you guys have your own animations for that, that is awesome. If not, I will provide a link in the description below. I'll talk about that in a second. So we have the charge and then the release variants. So we're going to do this two ways. You can fully charge the attack for bonus damage, or you can kind of half charge it and release it part way through for regular damage. And again, we have the one-handed and two-handed variants. If you guys need these, we have the animation set on our Unity Asset Store page. Right there on the straight sword animation set, we have light attacks, heavy attacks, running attacks, jumping attacks, basically a whole Dark Souls 3 moveset, and we're about to add blocking to it for free. We are also open to adding any animations you guys want to see, so check that out if you'd like. Okay, so now over in the animator window, I'm going to create a few empty animation states to house these animations. I'm going to start here by just giving these a very distinct and clear name. So I'm just going to say one-handed, OH for one-handed, charging attack release, and then I'm going to say O1 because we put O1 on everything here. And I'm also going to make a copy of this and paste it, and right next to it here, I will change this to full release. So these will be the release animations, the exact same animation, but one will be a full release and one will be a partial release where you're not fully charging the attack. And obviously the full release variant does bonus damage. So then I'm going to make an animation event over here, or an animation state rather, above this. I'm going to call this charging attack charge. This is just the charging animation only, not the actual attack. So we're going to need a couple of bools. The first one that will be of, I guess, the most importance will be is fully charged attack. I'm actually going to change that to is performing a fully charged attack. So if you get to the animation state attack full release, this bool turns to true and lets our player know that we are performing a fully charged attack. But in order to know whether we're going to the fully charged version or the partially charged version, we need to make another bool. And this bool is going to be simply called is charging attack. Now, as you can imagine, while holding the charge attack button, this bool is going to be true. So if it is true at the end of this animation, it's going to go to the full charged version. And if it's not true, partway through this animation, it's going to go to the less charged version. And I'll just put a transition back here to the empty. And obviously, not fully charging it releases the attack sooner, but fully charging it will do bonus damage. Alright, so you can go ahead and put the two-handed versions in here too now if you would like. I'm just going to drag in the one-handed version animations. So the charge animation goes on right there in the charge animation state, and then the release goes on the full charge release and the regular release. And I'm going to do the combo for this as well. So I'll copy it and paste it so we can have the second charge attack. So just change all the ones here to twos and replace the charge animation 1 with charge animation 2 and release animation 1 with release animation 2. I'm not going to put in the two-handed versions in this video because, again, it is identical. Just basically do the same thing but replace one-handed with two-handed. And when you're putting this in the code, the same is true. So I trust by now you guys would know how to do this. It's just the exact same thing, but you're checking to see if the player is two-handing the weapon. Now, I'm going to make it so there is, like we were saying, 1 and 0. So the animation fully completes for the full release. So the exit time is on 1 and the transition duration is on 0. That means we're literally going to play the full animation and release because these animations perfectly go together. We don't need to blend them. And I'm just going to drag this down here just a little bit. We're going to get to what we're going to do to the half-charged transitions in a bit. We're going to put them on like half the duration in, so you will leave the animation attack a lot sooner, but at the cost of a lot of extra damage. Next, let's go open the player controls, and let's go down to the player actions. We want to go to the right trigger here, and let's duplicate that. I'm then going to change that name to hold right trigger instead of just right trigger, and we're going to make this a pass-through, and we're going to add an interaction to it. We're going to add the hold interaction. Now, we're also going to go to the regular right trigger and add the tap interaction. This is because we don't want them conflicting, because if we don't have a tap interaction on this, then basically you're going to have some trouble because it's going to try to activate two of these simultaneously. So after that, let's back out and save that, and then let's go into the player game object and open up our input handler. And we're going to add the input now for the newly added hold RT input. So Let's start by creating a bool. This is public bool hold RT input. I'm going to keep the naming conventions the same by keeping this a lowercase rt. And then on enable, let's go down here, and I'm just going to copy this hold RB canceled logic and paste it. And we're going to change hold RB to hold RT. We're going to change hold RB input to hold RT input. So let's do that again, and let's change canceled to performed. And then I'll go over what this means. I'm sure a lot of you know, though. We'll change false to true and cancel to performed. So just going over this real quick, what we're saying here is, I'm going to separate this so you can see it. If we're holding the RT button, then and it's performed, we're changing the hold RT input to true. If we let go of the RT button, so it's canceled, we're changing the hold RT input to false. So very straightforward. Holding a button turns it on, letting go of the button disables it or turns it off. So let's make a private void called handle hold RT input. And as you can imagine, this is going to handle the logic processing of when we are holding the RT button. All right, so the first thing we want to do is set that bool on our animator to whatever the RT button is. So let's say player.animator.setBool is charging attack to whatever the hold RT input is to. So basically, whenever you're holding the RT input, you are charging an attack. And then right below that, let's go here and say if hold RT input, then we're going to say player update which hand character is using, true because this is the right hand, and the RT will always be taking care of what's on the right hand. Then we'll say player.player inventory manager dot is it right weapon or current item being used equals player inventory dot right weapon. Okay, and then right below that, let's actually do the logic for our item action. We're going to say if our player is two-handing the weapon, then we're going to want to do the two-handed item action, which we don't have yet. I remember I talked about that in a previous video, but right now it's just pseudocode, so we're going to turn that on in a second. We're going to say if player.player inventory manager.right weapon.two-hand hold RT action does not equal false. And as you can see, that's not coming up. So let's go to our weapon item script, and let's go and basically remove all the slashes on this alternative code down here, because you might have a different item action for the two-handed variant of the holding RT versus the one-handed variant. For example, you can't aim a bow unless you're two-handing it, so the two-handed LB action will be different than the one-handed LB action. So let's just bring these into the code here now, and I'm going to have a video where we further expand upon that in a polished video, so don't worry too much about it. But we're going to check, see if player.player inventory.right weapon.two-handed hold RT action does not equal null. Then we're just going to simply run the logic of that action. And right now we don't have a charged attack action, so we're going to make one momentarily. Now else, if we're not two-handing, then we know we're one-handing, so we will check and make sure the one-handed hold RT action is not null. And if it's not, we will run it. So just change the T to an O, and we're good to go. That rhymes. Oh, apparently we're not. First off, make sure this does not equal null. I forgot that, my bad. And I think this is because we actually don't have a called one-handed. We just have a called hold RT action, I believe. Let's just see. Yes, I can see it now. We've just called it hold RT action. And as you can imagine, that does not sit right with me because I'm a stickler for naming conventions. So I'm going to quickly go over to the weapon item script here in a second, and I'm going to change the names of these variables to match that of their two-handed counterparts. So by doing that, I will simply rename and just basically put OH underscore in front of all the names. I'll be right back. Won't make you watch me do all this. Okay, we're good. So now it's very distinct. This will erase the actions in any items that you have if you change the names like me. So you need to go and drag in your actions again on your straight sword or your mace or whatever. Let's make a new script called charge attack action. What we want to do is basically copy the entirety of the logic from the heavy action, because we're just going to do some clever renaming here, because it will be similar minus a few sets of logic that we will be able to delete. So it's going to complain because we don't have our namespace dragged in and we are not deriving from an item action. Delete the jumping attack function that we had there. We don't need that anymore. We're not doing a jumping attack on the charging attack action. So then let's make this derived from item action, and let's give it a create asset menu item name, so we can create one of these in our project. Let's change it from heavy attack action to charge attack action. And lastly, let's implement our namespace as is per tradition. Mine is SG for Sebastian Graves. Now let's open up some of the functionality here and delete a lot of the stuff right here, if the player is sprinting, delete that whole thing. We're not doing anything here. This is only for charged attacks. If we can do a combo, we can keep that. But let's rename handle heavy weapon combo to handle charge weapon combo, because we're just going to be changing the animation calls, really. So that's the logic will be much the same. That's fine. That's fine. Handle heavy attack can be changed to handle charge attack. And again, the logic here, because it's still calling upon an attack, will be very similar. So we can actually reuse much of this. Checking for which hand we're using, that's good. And now this is just about renaming a few things to the proper animation names. So to do that first, let's go to our player combat manager, because we need to add in the animation names for our charge attack. As you can see here, we have our attack animations. Let's do the one-handed and two-handed versions, public string. Start off by saying OH underscore charge underscore attack 01, keeping the naming conventions the same. And then I'm going to copy the string value from the actual animation state window here. Just copy this and then paste it in here in our code. All right, so do the same thing for OHAND charge attack 2, obviously replacing the 1 with the 2 in both cases. And then if you feel inclined, do the same for your two-handed variant as well. So replace the O with a T and replace the O with a capital T over here on the string variant of it. And the same thing, replace the 1 with a 2, and we're good to go. So now we have all of that in place. We can actually just start rewriting now these O-hand heavy attack 01 will be O-hand, one-handed, not O-hand, charge attack 01. So basically, wherever you see heavy, just replace it with the word charge, or just copy and paste the animation or replace it entirely. But really, you could just replace the word heavy with charge if you feel so inclined. And just make sure you're not making any mistakes here. It's very easy to put a two-handed animation where a one-handed animation should be, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you'll see it in the gameplay anyway, and it's quite easy to come back and change because you just need to come back and change this one function. So don't worry too much about it. But I've done that a bunch of times. You accidentally place in a one-handed attack animation where a two-handed attack animation should be, or vice versa. All right, so I'm just going to go through here now and do my best to replace all these without messing it up. Not thinking too hard about it, though, so that might happen. And remember, when you're doing it for your left hand, make sure you're calling upon the mirror to be true. See how we have play, target, animation, true, false, true. I believe that third bool there is an indicator of if we are mirroring the animation, which would make it play from our left hand instead of our right. Now, if you're using the right hand, all you need to do is keep that one true there, which is, are we interacting or performing an action? That is true. Okay, so when we're done this, we're actually mostly finished now. We only need to do a couple things, and I'm just going to talk over while I do this because this is mind-numbingly repetitive. So all we need to do now is basically notify the player when he is performing a fully charged attack on the player manager so that anybody he damages can know, and then we can apply a damage modifier when that character gets damaged. So basically, whatever our player strikes with a fully charged attack, we're going to pass the information on to whatever we're hitting to let that thing know that, hey, this is a fully charged attack, and then we're going to modify our damage value based on that. And we're also just going to take a look at the animations and make sure they're transitioning fine and just make sure it's all working nice and well. So I'm going to create a new item action here for our charge attack action, and I'm going to drag that inside the two-handed and one-handed actions of our sword, if I can find it here. And as you can see, all the actions are gone now because I renamed them. That's okay. If you want to, you can drag them back in. So light attack for tap RB, one-handed and two-handed. And I'm not going to do that right now in this video because we need to go back and add the two-handed variant to some of the inputs on the input manager anyway. So I'll leave that for now, and we'll do that in a polished video. And I'm going to drag in just the charge attack actions right now in the hold RT, one-handed and two-handed. So I'm going to go over to the input handler and make sure we're calling handle hold RT input, or else all this is for nothing. We need to make sure we're doing that in the tick input. Not sure why float delta is there. Just going to remove that. I thought I had that deleted ages ago. Let's just put this now right below these other holds. So handle hold RT input right here. We're going to get an error now because that's going to complain we deleted the float delta. I think we need to delete that on the player manager. That's okay. Let's go back into the project and see. Yes, there's the error. Double click it. Now just delete this delta here on the update of the player manager. All right, save that. And that's going to be good. Now all we need to do is go into the animation window here and add our animation events. So you're familiar with this, the can rotate, the open damage collider, close damage collider, and drain stamina based on attack. We haven't updated that drain stamina event yet. So I'm just going to copy them all from light attack and paste them on the release, not the charge, because this is when the actual damage is occurring. And some of you may notice that stamina does not drain any longer on the attacks in this video. That is because I'm going to make a system that detects which type of attack you're performing, and it drains stamina based on that, instead of actually having to have different animation events for different attacks. But I'm going to do that in a future video. Don't worry about it right now. So I'm just going to set these up roughly where I think they should be. Not going to spend too much time on this right now because the presentation for you guys is much more important, the functionality. Make sure you have your can combo or enable and disable combo. Otherwise, you won't be able to chain these charged attacks together. And that looks good. I'm going to copy all these now and then go to the one-handed release 2, paste them here, and they should roughly line up to be the same because that's how we made these animations. And yes, they are lining up to be pretty much the same. I could drag out that close damage clutter 1 extra frame. That looks fine. Okay, so now that that's done, all we really have to do now is notify our character, and let's just check the animations themselves, make sure everything's working as intended. So I'm going to hold the R button. There we go. And, oh, I'm not comboing. It says we have an invalid layer index, which means we spelled something wrong. And back here, I am trying to perform a two-handed attack animation, where a one-handed attack animation should be just after I said, and also that was a heavy attack, not a charge attack, so that was wrong too. So just replace these two-handeds with one-handeds. Well, you probably didn't do that. I did that after I told you to be careful about that, so there you go. It can happen to anybody. All right, now let's save that and go back into the game. Now, if I hold the button here, I will perform a charge attack. There we go. If I keep holding it, I will combo it in. Now, that is a bug, because if we keep holding it, we'll actually keep comboing. But we're going to fix that in the housekeeping video, because it kind of ties in with something else I want to also adjust. So for now, we're going to leave that because it's not too crazy. We'll fix that very, very soon. Now, I'm going to add a is performing fully charged attack script to the animation state of full release. And we're going to utilize this cool feature of putting a script on an animation here. And we're going to use onStateEnter. And what we're going to do is this fires as soon as the transition enters this new animation. On this case, it being fully charged. And then we're going to say animator.setBool. And then we're going to say is performing fully charged attack. And then we're going to set it to true. Alternatively, you could get the player manager variable here. And you could just set it by saying player.isPerforming charged attack is true. And then you can make that bool over here. But we're going to go to the character manager. We're going to add a public bool for is performing fully charged attack. And then we're just going to go to our player manager. And on update, we're going to say is performing fully charged attack is equal to the animator dot is performing fully charged attack. So I'm just doing it this way again to show you guys there's a different way of doing it. I think I showed you a few videos ago. You can actually just basically call upon the player manager by referencing the animator and then saying .get component and then changing it from there by saying player.isPerforming attack or is performing fully charged attack equals true. I try to do things a bunch of different ways just to get the point across that there are a lot of ways to do this. And I'm sure in situations, some ways will be better than others. All right, so I'm going to save that now. And let's go over now to our character stats manager. Let's put a comma here on take damage. And let's add a character manager called enemy character damaging me. Now this is going to break like 6 functions across all of our damage collider scripts. That's okay. We can just fix that very, very easily. We're going to say if enemy character damaging me dot is performing fully charged attack. Let's put that right at the bottom here. We want to do it right before we subtract from the health. All we're going to say is inside these brackets, final damage is equal to final damage, and I'm just going to say times 2. But whatever you want to make the final damage adjusted to, if we're performing a fully charged attack, it will be that number after that. So you can make a variable here for a multiplier if you'd like. And this will make the damage output significantly higher. In my case, multiplying it by 2. And then wherever it says take damage, put a comma here and just put in character manager. Because if you don't recall, we actually have the character manager of the character using the weapon up here. That's called when we initialize the weapon. So basically, whatever weapon we have in our hand, the person using it will fill this variable. And since we need the variable of the person attacking our character when we take damage, this is the variable we need. Hope that is clear. I can't recall if we fill this variable on things like bombs or not, but it'd be very easy to do. You just basically, when the bomb is initialized, make sure that variable is being filled. But I think it is already being filled, so that should be fine. Now, anywhere you're getting an error, like here we do, this is the enemy stats manager. Make sure you add that variable for a character manager, enemy damaging me, and then pass it here because we're overriding it on the enemy and player stats manager, overriding the base take damage function on the character stats manager. So just add in that character manager enemy character damaging me on both of those, and you're good to go. You're going to get a few more errors then from all of our damage collider scripts. Just put a comma right here and then just say character manager. Because again, these all derive from the base damage collider class, which has the character manager variable being the character using this weapon. So there we go. Just say character manager here again, and that will get rid of all your errors. So this is one of those cases of a thing we implemented a long time ago coming in handy right now. And now, obviously, there are plenty of different ways you could go about this, but this is just the way I chose, and I think it's very nice. Definitely, out of all the ways I've tested, my favorite way to go about this. Okay, one last time here, I think on the spell damage collider, just saying character manager, and we're good to go. All right, so that should get rid of all the errors, and yes, it does. Excellent. Now, I'm going to make the transition here, say 0.55, so about half the time, and then the transition duration 0.25 maybe. Let me just play around with this for a second. There was a... Yeah, we're going to say 0.55 then 0.2. And this is for the releasing early. So you're getting through about half of the animation. There you go. It's a lot faster. It still gets that full flow, that full attack look. Now, if I go up here and attack the gentleman on the left with a not fully charged attack, check out the damage I do. So you'll see here a bit of damage, about 1/4 of his bar. If I fully charge the attack and attack this gentleman here on the right, you can see, boom, that's like over half of his health bar, which is significantly higher than the damage I did on the left, and the attack takes longer to perform. So there you go, guys. You have a system for performing charged attacks in your game. If you like the video, be sure to drop a like. It does genuinely help out the series so much. Leave a comment to appease the YouTube algorithm gods. And a thank you to my patrons. It is genuinely because of you guys I get to keep making these videos. Thank you all so much. I will see you in the next one.